Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Good Friday evening at 23:20 at night Eastern Time. Now, our beverage of choice tonight is Dos Equis, which was on sale at Giant Eagle on the way home from church tonight on Good Friday evening. I like this because it's the old German style lagers. They were widely available in the United States until up until Prohibition, and then after Prohibition was repealed, then they brought out all this watery, crappy shit that we have today, which has only gotten worse since then. But the old German style lagers. See, the Germans had brewed a lot of beer in Mexico, and still do. Well, or their companies, successor companies do. And they do it by the old recipe. It's 4.2% alcohol. It's not going to blow you out of the water. It's like beer in England. I mean, it's not going to blow you out of the water. You can stand around and drink that stuff all night. This is good beer. This isn't sponsored, but I'd gladly let them sponsor me if they wanted to. Dos Equis. Yeah. Anyway, that's the drink of choice tonight. You say I stopped at the Giant Eagle on the way home from church. I may have mentioned that. Well, there's always, the great thing about, well, there are many great things about life. Assuming you can cook your own food and wipe your own ass. And more or less stay upright a lot of the time, more or less unaided. I.e., don't fall down a lot and break your ribs, bang your head, cut your arm, I've mentioned I was going to read at Good Friday services tonight, and I did. And I thought I had printed off all the Holy Week readings, and I had done, and I found them today. So it was just a matter of, flipping and mixing and organizing my flip books that I take to, out of which I read. Because I like the nice big print, rather than the little tiny print that they have in the lectionary books, or the even tinier print that they give you in the handouts for the service leaflets. And what's going on? My eyes are scum factories. I don't know why, but they are. That's just the way things work. So, all life is a story. All lives are stories. The way I make sense of my life is by parceling it out in stories when I can. And tonight was such a night. The rector actually beat me to the church. Usually I'm the one waiting for him to unlock the door. But no, we arrived about the same time. So I drove in just as he and his wife were walking across the parking lot. It was about like 6:25 in the evening. Service starts at 7 in the evening, 1900. And I didn't know, of course, I missed Good Friday and Easter last year anyway because of my broken ribs. Because, I broke my ribs, I think, March 9th or 12th last year, and so I was basically not going anywhere for 4 weeks at least before I was able to start driving. I think I started driving after 4 weeks. Maybe. I'd have to go back and look at my YouTube record. Anyway, there's always a lot of sort of tire spinning. I have my little flip book with the 24-point type printouts in it that I can flip through as I read, and I put that up on the big lectern, and got the stool adjusted and the microphone adjusted, and after a sort of a discrete amount of time, I asked him, how do you want to work the service? Because it's a different order of service for Good Friday. You have bidding prayer, you have biddings, and then you have collects, biddings and collects. They call them the solemn collects of Good Friday. I think the Roman Catholic Church has a similar format, I think, but they do it far more extensively than we do. We do 5. Well, of course, then Old Testament, New Testament, and then the John's Passion. Okay. So I didn't know whether he wanted me to do the biddings and then he read the collects, or I've had Good Fridays with 5 different rectors, 2 of whom were interims. 3 of whom were interims, actually. Well, maybe 6 different rectors, come to think of it. And they've almost all done them slightly differently. So I wanted to refresh in my mind how he did his from 2 years ago. And it turned out he was doing it differently than he did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he read the whole shebang right straight through. He read even the readings without a lay reader. This year he had 2 lay readers. He read the Passion. I did the biddings. He read the collects on the solemn collects. So I did the biddings on the solemn collects. He did the collects on the solemn collects. But so we thrashed that out. I at least like the way this guy establishes the program before we get started, so there's not too many surprises. Our previous rector and I really liked him, but he sort of tried to call these little audibles with hand signals, but you couldn't understand. Nice guy. I mean, I really liked it. I really was sorry to see him go, but and we had just about broken him of that, where he would give you a little heads up before he did stuff, but you still had to plan ahead with him. Like I don't have to hide extra readings around the place in case you see this guy doesn't. Once you put stuff up on the lectern, he doesn't take it away. Charles would come up and take it away and move it around. You always had to be flying ahead of him. Well, you got to be flying ahead of anybody, actually. I get becalmed. So, the readings go off. I was reading with a fellow he's had a couple of strokes, and he's a nice guy. He's really nice. He's an older guy. He's probably maybe 76. Well, I mean, hell, we're all older guys right now. But he's had a couple of strokes and just a bit of a speech impediment. Not bad at all. In fact, I think he's more understandable now because he talks more slowly than before. He had a stroke. Now, that's a hell of a way to slow down and make yourself understood, but there it is. Anyway, So he leads the 22nd Psalm, Psalm 22, by Protestant numbering, and that's always a very emotionally intense psalm. Anyway, I always have a hard time going through that one, and I read the Isaiah 50, basically it's the end of 52, and then all of 53. The Suffering Servant song is the traditional name of the piece. One of the suffering. I guess there's 3 or 4 of them. It's not a song. Well, it is. It's written in Hebrew poetic form. If you look at the original stuff. Okay. And then it was time for the sermon. Okay. Well, what are you going to say about Good Friday? I've heard any number of sermons on Good Friday about, well, why do we call it good? And now we wait, and I think at one point read you a Good Friday sermon I had written that I never got. I've never had a chance to deliver. It starts out, and it was night. And then of course I progressed to how, there's a little glimmer of light at the end, and then of course massive light at the very end of, There's all sorts of ways to approach it, clearly. I like a sermon that waxes more on, how shall we say, the metaphysical and theological, perhaps? Okay. Now, maybe it's because I'm a physician and have thought a lot about various forms of inflicting death on people in terms of how it would affect them physiologically and pathophysiologically, more accurately. That's what physicians think about in their training, at any rate. That's what I did. Do still, actually. 2 years ago, Reverend Highland read a long, we're talking 20 plus pages of a very detailed, thorough, clinico-pathological exegesis of what would have happened to Jesus Christ as he was dying after being tortured and then crucified. I think it was by a pathologist out of Georgia. I think it was about 35 years ago he wrote this, somewhere in that area, maybe 35 to 25 years ago. I don't have the reference. My son just emailed me to have me email Highland to get the reference, and I said I wasn't going to do that. He's going to have to email Highland himself to get the reference. Because Thomas teaches religion at his Roman Catholic school that he teaches at. 8th grade religion. I guess I'm ready for confirmation. And he, obviously they spend a fair amount of time on the passion and death and crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's sort of like, that and redemption from sin and salvation. It's kind of like what it's all about. Anyway, so 2 years ago, Reverend Highland, or Terry as I like to call him, I won't call him Father. He doesn't like to be called Reverend, so I call him Terry. Read us this account. It's an absolutely harrowing account. If you have had no medical training or background, and haven't witnessed people die or come in like they've, after they've been hit by cars and mangled or chopped up in the surgical area for a big ass cancer operation. If you haven't had that kind of background, when you listen to this thing your first time through, or perhaps subsequent times through, you're going to get sick to your stomach. I imagine some military veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle Eastern region, well, for that matter, any military veteran who's seen people blown up, and not given a clean kill and suffered long afterwards. I imagine they have a pretty good idea what it's about too. I don't think anybody ever becomes truly inured to that sort of thing. Everybody pays a price for having witnessed a lot of that kind of stuff. Some people handle that price better than others. And in any case, so he read this thing 2 years ago, and it's like you're sort of, Now I wasn't on the platform as a lay reader then, but I was. I jump ahead of myself in my tale. It's very similar to what a 16th century nun wrote that ultimately became banned. It was put on the index of prohibited books until the 19th century by the Roman Catholic Church, about a vision she had of Christ dying under the act, by the act of crucifixion and, being tortured. It's quoted at length in William F. Buckley's faith memoir, Nearer, My God, Nearer, My God. I might stick the reference in, I might not. But this Georgia pathologist account that Reverend Highland read 2 years ago is very, very similar to that, without sort of the more mystical, emotional overlay that the nun had. So I was writing an email to my UK friend because I know he appreciates matters liturgical. And I then wrote an email to my son, who I know appreciates matters liturgical. And I said, given our shared appreciation of all matters liturgical, I thought you'd have appreciated tonight's little soiree. Now, admittedly, I did not attend last year's Good Friday efforts because of the rib fractures, but I did attend the one the year before, the 2016 Interim Highlands First Good Friday with us. That year he read at length the 20-page plus, well, I just told you what he read. It is very graphic and undoubtedly true. It was written by a Georgia pathologist who had gone back to the Roman and Greek sources and also the archaeological evidence available around 35 years ago. Nothing significant has changed in that time. It takes about 20 minutes or so to read aloud at a fairly good clip, kind of like what I'm talking now. Not California girl speed, but moving briskly along. Now, of the 12 or 13 people who were there tonight, 2 are physicians, 1 is a veterinarian, and at least 2 are or have been nurses. Okay, and I said, here's the deal. He read us the same thing tonight. The exact same sermon he gave 2 years ago. The exact same one. Now, I don't, you've got to recycle material from time to time when you're a preacher and a rector. I mean, you have to. I mean, it's just inevitable. But come on, you try to space them out a bit. Now, the fellow next to me was reading with me, I told you he had a couple of strokes. started retching with the dry heaves 2/3 of the way through this sermon and started drooling down the front of his owl. I thought he was having another MI or a stroke or something. Reverend Highland never missed a beat. It's all go around here when you're having clinico-pathological fun during Good Friday sermon time. No mention of the vast metaphysical and theological import of the crucifixion followed by the resurrection. Maybe he thought talking about the resurrection would be getting ahead of the script a bit. Nope, just a dragnet, Sergeant Friday, just the facts, ma'am approach. So I'm going to go back and read at 8 o'clock on Sunday, Easter morning. Actually, I'll be interested if he recycles his Easter sermon from from 2 years ago. He might. I don't know. It'll be fun to see. Anyway, so actually, my conclusion to all this was, you know, I think some people who've been watching me might know I've been sort of ambivalent about skipping out on going to church regularly. Any doubts I had been having about skipping out on my non-reading Sundays were easily dispelled tonight. Your dad. But yeah, it's, you know, any doubts I've been having about not going, no. I'd made the right call. Circumstances may have propelled me to start making the call, but I've made the right call after tonight. Don't phone it in on Good Friday, guys. Just don't. Just don't phone it in on Good Friday. So, as I said, I stopped in at Giant Eagle and got some wine and beer on the way home. So, I'm going to say bye-bye, YouTubers now.